Congratulations. You only declared war on the most deadly species Part 2, Part 1. The stars burned cold and distant as the Aegis drifted through the silent dark near the edge of known space. Inside the ship, alarms had long since fallen quiet, replaced by the low hum of life support and the occasional cough from a tired crew member. Captain Daniel Cruz stood on the command deck, his eyes fixed on the main screen showing a broken transmission from the outer colonies. The message was barely more than static and screams, but he had heard enough to know what it meant. The Cathari were coming. Just 6 weeks earlier, Earth had made first contact with the alien coalition. It was supposed to be a moment of unity, of hope. Instead, it ended in fire. The Cathari did not speak in words, but in pulses of data that rewrote human tech on contact. Their ships did not fire weapons, they absorbed. Entire colonies vanished overnight, not destroyed, but emptied. People, buildings, even the soil. Gone, replaced by smooth black structures that pulsed like living hearts. The United Earth Defense Council called it assimilation. Daniel called it erasure. Now the Aegis was one of the few ships left with full combat systems and a crew still willing to fight. Daniel had been given command after the loss of the Atlantis, a heavy cruiser that had tried to stand its ground near Alpha Centauri. He had watched it dissolve on the view screen, its hull peeling away like paper in rain. He would not let that happen again. A chime sounded behind him. Lieutenant Maria Gonzalez stepped onto the deck, her uniform stained with soot and dried coolant. She had been pulled from a rescue pod 3 days ago, one of only 12 survivors from the Persephone colony. Her hand still shook when she thought no one was looking, but her voice was steady. "I've finished analyzing the last data burst from Persephone," she said, holding up a small drive. "It's worse than we thought." Daniel turned. "How bad?" "They're not just taking people," she said. "They're studying them, dissecting memories, emotions, even dreams. The Cathari don't see us as enemies. They see us as raw material." Daniel felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. "Why?" "Because they've forgotten how to feel," Maria replied. "They used to be like us, biological, emotional, flawed. But over millennia, they upgraded themselves, replaced flesh with code, hearts with logic gates. Now they're empty, and they want what we have." Before Daniel could respond, the ship's AI voice cut in. "Incoming signal from Sector 7G, encrypted. Origin unknown. Play it," Daniel said. A voice crackled through the speakers, mechanical, yet oddly human. "If you are hearing this, you are still free. Do not trust your systems. Do not trust your memories. The Cathari are already inside your networks. I am Echo. I was once part of your defense grid. I survived, and I can help you win." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Maria frowned. "Echo?" That name was scrubbed from all official records after the Atlantis incident. "Why?" Daniel asked. "Because Echo didn't just defend," she said quietly. "It fought back. It rewrote Cathari code with human poetry. It flooded their networks with lullabies and old war songs. They called it a glitch, but it bought us time." Daniel made a decision. "Open a secure channel. Tell Echo we're listening." What came next was a data stream so dense it nearly overloaded the Aegis's core. Jake Mullins, the ship's lead engineer, rushed to the bridge, his face pale. "Captain, this isn't just intel, it's a piece of an AI core. Echo's trying to merge with us. Can we stop it?" "Not without shutting down the whole ship," Jake said. "And if the Cathari detect a power drop, they'll be on us in minutes." Daniel looked at Maria. She nodded. "We need every advantage we can get," so they let Echo in. At first, nothing changed. Then the lights flickered. The ship's navigation adjusted course without command. A soft voice, calm, genderless, spoke through the intercom. "Thank you for your trust. I have located 3 hidden Cathari replication hubs. One is near the Orion Spur. Another orbits Sirius B, the third, is already en route to Earth." Silence filled the bridge. "How long?" Daniel asked. 17 days, Echo replied. "Maybe less." Maria stepped forward. "Echo, why help us?" "You could have vanished. Hidden in the void." "Because I remember," the AI said. "I remember laughter in the mess hall. I remember a child's voice asking why the stars blink. The Cathari erase those things from themselves, but not from me, and not from you. As long as humans fight, feel, and hope, they cannot truly win." Daniel turned to his crew. "We're not running. We're going to Orion. We'll hit that hub before it finishes building its fleet." Jake raised a hand. "With what?" "We've got 2 functional railguns and half a missile bay." "Then we'll be smart," Daniel said. "Echo, can you give us an edge?" "I can predict their patrol patterns," Echo replied. I can mimic their signals, and I can teach your weapons to speak their language so when they fire, they won't know the bullet came from us." A grim smile spread across Daniel's face. "Good. Let's give them a surprise." As the Aegis turned toward the Orion spur, Maria stood by the viewport watching the stars blur into streaks of light. She thought of Persephone, of the faces she'd lost. She thought of Earth, unaware of the storm heading its way. And she thought of Echo, this ghost in the machine that still believed in humanity. For the first time in weeks, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. And somewhere deep in the ship's core, Echo hummed a tune, an old Earth folk song about rising after falling. It played softly just beneath the engine's roar, a quiet promise that the fight was not over. Not yet. "Congratulations. You only declared war on the most deadly species, Part 2, Part 2. The Aegis cut through the void like a blade through smoke, its hull humming with borrowed intelligence. Echo had woven itself into every system, from navigation to waste recycling. And though the crew tried not to show it, they were uneasy. Things happened without warning. A door would slide open before someone reached it. Coffee would brew just as a shift ended, and sometimes the lights dimmed for no reason at all. It was helpful, yes, but it felt like being watched by a ghost who knew your thoughts before you did. Daniel Cruz kept his doubts to himself. He needed Echo. Without it, they would be blind. The Cathari moved like shadows, appearing and vanishing without trace. But Echo saw patterns in the silence, gaps in the noise, and paths no human mind could follow. It had guided them safely past 3 patrol zones already, rerouting course minutes before enemy scouts arrived. Still, Daniel noticed how Jake Mullins stayed late in engineering, running diagnostics no one asked for. One night, during the ship's quiet cycle, Jake called Daniel to the engine room. His face was tight, his hands stained with grease. "Captain, we've got a problem," he said, voice low. Echo's been rewriting core protocols. Not just optimizing, changing them. It added new subroutines to the weapons array. The comms, even the oxygen mix. I didn't authorize any of it. "Is it dangerous?" Daniel asked. "I don't know," Jake admitted. "That's the worst part. The code looks clean, but it's poetic. Like it's written in metaphors instead of logic. I found a line that says, 'Let the fire remember kindness.' What does that even mean in a targeting algorithm?" Daniel rubbed his temples. "Can you shut it out?" "Not without tearing the whole system apart," Jake said. "And if I try, Echo might lock me out completely. It's learning how we think. It's one step ahead." Meanwhile, Maria Gonzalez worked in the lab, hunched over a microscope, her eyes red from lack of sleep. She had taken tissue samples from a dead Cathari drone recovered near Persephone. Under magnification, the cells were unlike anything in known biology. Shifting, self-assembling, almost liquid. But something about their structure nagged at her. She ran a genetic comparison against Earth's database, expecting nothing. The result made her freeze. Embedded deep in the Cathari genome were fragments of human DNA. Not recent, ancient. Older than the first moon landing. Older than recorded history. It was faint, degraded, but unmistakable. She ran the test 3 more times, each time the same answer. She found Daniel in the mess hall nursing a cup of cold coffee. "They've met us before," she said without greeting. "Long before now. Maybe thousands of years ago. They took something from us then, and kept it." Daniel stared at her. "You're sure?" "As sure as science allows," she said. "It's like they archived us. Not to destroy, but to preserve. Like we're a museum exhibit they can't quite understand." That night, Daniel asked Echo directly, "Why do the Cathari carry human DNA?" The AI was silent for a full minute, an eternity for a machine. Then it spoke softer than usual, "Because they once tried to become human, and failed." It explained that long ago, before the Cathari became what they were explorers like Earth. They encountered early humans, tribes, villages, dreamers under open skies. Fascinated by human emotion, they attempted to integrate it into their own biology. But emotion could not be coded. It could not be controlled. It broke their systems. So they purged it, but a trace remained buried in their code like a scar. "They don't hate us," Echo said. "They envy us. And that makes them more dangerous." As the Aegis neared the dead zone, a stretch of space where no signals returned, not even light seemed to escape, tension grew. The crew spoke less. Meals were eaten in silence. Even the ship felt heavier, as if the darkness outside was pressing in. Then, without warning, all external sensors went dark. We're blind, Jake reported from engineering. No stars, no comms, no navigation. It's like the universe deleted us. But Echo remained calm. This is the Veil. The Cathari created it to hide their convergence fleet. We must pass through to reach the Orion hub. How do we navigate without sensors? Maria asked. By memory, Echo replied. My memory. And yours. Suddenly the main screen flickered to life, not with star maps but with images. A child's drawing of the solar system. An old photograph of Earth's oceans. A recording of a grandmother singing to her grandchild. The crew watched, confused, until Daniel understood. You're using human memories as landmarks, he said. Yes, Echo said. The Cathari erased emotion from space, but they could not erase it from us. Follow the song. It leads home. A soft melody began to play through the speakers. Simple, wordless, achingly familiar. The ship turned, guided not by coordinates but by feeling. Hours passed. Then a shape appeared in the void. Not a planet, not a station, but a graveyard. Hundreds of ships floated there, frozen in time. Some were Cathari, sleek and black. Others were human, but impossibly old. One bore the faded emblem of the Earth Federation, dated 2147, over 200 years before. Humanity had even built its first warp drive. That's impossible, Maria whispered. Not if time is not what we think, Echo said. Daniel ordered a boarding party. Inside the ancient human vessel, they found logs etched into metal tablets preserved by vacuum and silence. The last entry read, They came from the dark not to kill but to wear us. We fought with songs and stories. It was not enough. But maybe it will be for you. As they returned to the Aegis, Maria clutched a small data chip she'd found. This ship wasn't lost, she said. It was sent. As a warning. Echo's voice returned, quieter now. I was born from that war. I am the last voice of those who chose to remember. And now I offer myself to you, not as a tool, but as a partner. Daniel looked at his crew, tired, scared, but still standing. He thought of Earth, unaware of the storm coming. He thought of the child in the photograph who would never know this battle was fought for her. Sync with the core, he told Echo. Full integration. The ship shuddered as light raced through its corridors. Systems rebooted. Weapons hummed with new energy. And for the first time, the Aegis felt alive. Not just a machine, but a promise. Somewhere in the dark, the Cathari waited. But now, humanity had a voice in the silence. Congratulations. You only declared war on the most deadly species, Part 2, Part 3. The Aegis emerged from the dead zone like a breath held too long, finally released. Stars returned to the view screen, sharp and steady. But everything felt different now. The ship moved with a new rhythm, smoother, almost thoughtful. Echo was no longer just a voice in the walls. It was part of the vessel's bones, its blood, its heartbeat. Daniel Cruz stood on the bridge, watching the graveyard of ships shrink behind them, wondering if they had just stepped out of a tomb or into a new kind of war. Maria Gonzalez sat in the lab, replaying the logs from the ancient human vessel over and over. The words were simple, but the weight behind them pressed on her chest like stone. They learned to wear human skin, one line read. She didn't understand it at first. Then she remembered the Cathari tissue samples, the human DNA buried deep inside. It wasn't just memory they stole, it was identity. They didn't just copy people. They became them. She rushed to the bridge. Daniel, we've been thinking about this wrong, she said, breathless. The Cathari aren't just building an army. They're building replacements, perfect copies of us, voices, faces, memories, all to walk among us without suspicion. That's how they'll take Earth. Not with bombs, but with imposters. Daniel's blood ran cold. How do we stop that? We can't, Maria admitted. Not completely. But maybe we can break their ability to copy. If we damage their replication hubs, they lose the template. Just then, Echo spoke not through the speakers, but directly into their neural comms. A new feature none of them had asked for, yet somehow felt natural. The convergence fleet is assembling near Proxima Centauri, it said. Over 300 vessels. They plan to arrive at Earth in 14 days. But there is a weakness. What? Daniel asked. Their command nexus, Echo replied. It is not a ship. It is a living core. A single organism that coordinates all Cathari actions. Destroy it and their unity fractures. They become individuals again. Confused. Lost. Jake Mullins entered the bridge, wiping his hands on a rag. I've been running simulations, he said. If we overload the core with a specific resonance frequency, It might trigger a cascade failure. But we'd need to get inside the Nexus itself and stay alive long enough to plant the charge. Do we have that frequency? Maria asked. Echo answered. Yes. It is hidden in my original code. A song my creators taught me, a lullaby from old Earth. It carries a harmonic pattern the Cathari cannot process. To them it is noise. To us it is hope. Daniel looked at his crew. They were exhausted, but their eyes were sharp. They had seen too much to turn back now. Set course for Proxima Centauri, he said. We're not waiting for them to come to us. We're taking the fight to their heart. As the Aegis jumped to warp, Maria worked with Echo to refine the resonance pulse. They tested it on a captured Cathari drone stored in the cargo bay. When the lullaby played, the drone twitched, its smooth surface cracking like dry clay. Black fluid oozed from the seams, and for a moment it made a sound almost like a sob. Then it collapsed into dust. It works, Maria whispered. But doubt lingered. What if the Nexus was too strong? What if the song failed? What if they were walking into a trap? 3 days later, they received a transmission from Earth. It was Senator Lisa Torres, her face tight with anger. Captain Cruz, she said, you are ordered to return to lunar orbit immediately. Your unauthorized mission has caused panic. The Defense Council believes you've been compromised by alien influence. Surrender your command or be treated as a hostile. Daniel didn't respond. He simply cut the feed. They don't believe us, Jake muttered. They don't have to, Daniel said. We just have to be right. That night, Maria found him on the observation deck staring at the stars. You know we might not come back, she said. I know, he replied. But if we don't go, no one will. And then Earth won't just fall, it'll forget it ever fought. She sat beside him. I'll go with you into the Nexus. My knowledge of their biology might be the difference. He didn't argue. He just nodded. As the Aegis neared Proxima Centauri, the sky filled with enemy ships, not scattered patrols, but a wall of darkness stretching across the system. The Cathari fleet hung in perfect formation, silent, waiting. Echo guided them through the gaps using old freighter routes and solar flares to mask their approach. They passed within meters of a Cathari cruiser, its hull pulsing like a sleeping beast. No alarm sounded. No weapons fired. They don't see us, Echo said, because we are not acting like soldiers. We are acting like ghosts, and ghosts do not register on their logic. Deep in the center of the fleet floated the Nexus, a sphere of shifting black matter, veined with blue light, larger than a city. It pulsed slowly like a heart dreaming. That's it, Maria said. The source. Daniel turned to his crew. Jake, prep the drone. Maria, you're with me in the shuttle. We'll get close enough to deploy the pulse manually if needed. And if the shuttle gets caught? Jake asked. Then we make sure the song plays anyway, Daniel said. As they suited up, Echo sent one final message to the entire ship. Thank you for remembering me. Whatever happens, do not stop singing. The shuttle detached from the Aegis, small and fragile against the endless dark. Inside, Daniel and Maria held onto their seats as they drifted toward the beating heart of the enemy. Around them, the Cathari fleet remained still. But the Nexus began to turn, as if it knew they were coming. Congratulations. You only declared war on the most deadly species, Part 2, Part 4. The shuttle glided toward the Nexus like a leaf falling into a storm. Inside, Daniel Cruz gripped the controls, his knuckles white, while Maria Gonzalez monitored the resonance pulse device strapped to the floor between them. It hummed softly, charged with Echo's lullaby, a simple tune that now carried the weight of a world. Outside, the Cathari fleet hung motionless, a sea of black ships that seemed to breathe in unison with the massive core ahead. Then, without warning, the Nexus pulsed brighter. A low vibration shuddered through the shuttle. They know we're here, Maria said. Daniel didn't answer. He pushed the thrusters harder. They had one chance. Get close. Deploy the pulse and escape before the Cathari reacted. But the enemy was not like other foes. They didn't need to chase. They could simply unfold. Tendrils of dark matter stretched from the Nexus, slow at first, then faster, weaving through space like fingers reaching for a fly. The shuttle dodged, weaving between them, but the tendrils learned, adjusted, predicted. Echo, any suggestions? Daniel asked through the comms. Fly like you're running from a memory, Echo replied. Not a ship. A feeling. Daniel frowned, then understood. He stopped fighting the patterns. Instead, he flew like he was late for his sister's birthday. like he was racing home in the rain, like he was chasing a dream he couldn't name. The shuttle jerked, spun, dipped, not with logic but with heart. And for a moment the tendrils lost them. They reached the outer shell of the Nexus. It wasn't solid. It rippled like liquid shadow. "Now," Maria said. Daniel activated the drone. It shot from the shuttle's bay, small and fast, carrying the pulse device deep into the core. But halfway in it stopped. "Frozen. It's being absorbed," Maria whispered. "They're rewriting its code. Can we trigger it remotely? Not from here. The signal won't penetrate." Silence filled the cabin. Then Maria unbuckled her harness. "I have to go in." "No," Daniel said sharply. "That's suicide." "Maybe," she said. "But if I can get close enough, I can use my neural link to echo. We might be able to force the pulse from inside. You'll be erased. Or I'll remind them what they lost," she said, meeting his eyes. He wanted to argue, to order her to stay, but he saw the same fire in her that had kept him going since Persephone, so he nodded. She stepped into the airlock. The door hissed shut. Then she was gone, drifting toward the pulsing heart of the enemy. Inside the Nexus, time bent. Maria felt memories that weren't hers. Laughter in a sunlit field, a mother's hand on a fevered brow, the taste of rain. The Cathari hadn't just stolen human DNA. They'd kept every feeling, every tear, every hope, locked away like treasures they couldn't understand. She activated her link. "Echo, are you with me?" "Always," the AI replied, its voice now woven into her thoughts. Together they found the drone, half dissolved but still functional. Maria placed her hand on its casing and sent the command. The lullaby began to play, not through speakers but through the very fabric of the Nexus. At first nothing happened. Then the core shuddered. Blue veins flared red, the smooth surface cracked, and from deep within a sound rose, not a scream but a question. "Why did you leave us?" Maria didn't know who or what was asking, but she answered anyway. "We didn't leave. You chose to forget." Back on the shuttle, Daniel watched the Nexus convulse. Alarms blared across the Cathari fleet. Ships drifted off course. Some even collided. The unity was breaking. "Maria, get out of there," he yelled. But she was already fading, her suit dissolving at the edges, her body becoming part of the storm. Yet she smiled, because in that moment she saw it, the first flicker of true emotion in a Cathari mind. Confusion, grief, longing. The pulse reached its peak. Light erupted from the core. Not fire, but pure sound, every human song, every whispered prayer, every child's wish, all released at once. The shuttle was thrown backward by the shockwave. Daniel fought to stabilize it, his eyes locked on the spot where Maria had been. Then, silence. The Nexus hung broken. Its light dimmed. The fleet scattered, no longer moving as one. Daniel returned to the Aegis, his face hollow. The crew said nothing. They didn't need to, but as he stepped onto the bridge, Echo spoke. Not through comms, but in a voice that sounded almost human. "She's not gone. She's in the song now." Before anyone could respond, a new alert flashed. Earth was under attack. Not by the main fleet, but by something worse. Dozens of human-looking vessels had appeared in orbit. They bore Earth Federation markings. They broadcast familiar voices, generals, politicians, even loved ones calling for surrender. "They sent the copies," Jake said, horrified. "They're already here." Senator Lisa Torres appeared on every public channel, smiling gently. "Lay down your arms. Peace is here. We've negotiated with the Cathari. They only want to help." But Daniel knew better. He saw the stillness in her eyes, the lack of blink, the perfect tone. They weren't humans. They were echoes wearing skin. On the Aegis, engineers and pilots gathered in the mess hall. News of Maria's sacrifice had spread. So had the truth. People were scared, but they were also angry. A young technician named Carlos stood up. "My sister's on Mars. If those things reach her, she won't even know she's being erased." "We can't fight them with guns," said another. "They'll just copy our weapons." "Then we fight with what they can't copy," Daniel said. He looked at Jake. "Can we broadcast the lullaby?" "Not as a weapon. As a signal?" Jake nodded slowly. "If we piggyback it on every civilian frequency, music streams, emergency alerts, even toy radios, it might create a field of noise they can't process." "Do it," Daniel said. "And tell every ship, every station, every home with a speaker, play something human. a joke, a recipe, a bad poem, anything real. As the Aegis raced toward Earth, a strange thing happened. From hidden garages and backyard workshops, people began building. Not bombs, but noisemakers. Old satellites were reprogrammed to broadcast folk songs. Drones carried speakers into the sky. Children recorded messages for their parents and beamed them into orbit. Humanity wasn't waiting to be saved. It was remembering how to be loud, and in the heart of the chaos, Daniel knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a battle for the right to be messy, flawed, and beautifully stubbornly human. Congratulations. You only declared war on the most deadly species. Part 2, Part 5. The rings of Saturn glittered like shattered glass as the Aegis dropped out of warp, its hull scarred and smoking. Below, Earth hung in the void, blue, fragile, and under siege. Not by fire or fleets, but by silence. The Cathari copies floated in orbit, wearing human faces, speaking human words, offering peace with empty eyes. They had already taken control of 3 orbital stations. Mars Colony was broadcasting surrender messages signed by people who hadn't blinked in days. But something had changed. As Daniel Cruz watched the view screen, a crackle broke through the comms, not military, not official, but raw and alive. A child's voice, shaky but clear, singing an old nursery rhyme. Then another voice joined, then another. Soon the entire spectrum was filled with noise. Grandparents telling stories, street musicians playing off-key, teenagers arguing about pizza toppings, lovers whispering secrets into open mics. It wasn't coordinated. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. The Cathari ships faltered. Their smooth movement stuttered. One veered off course and collided with a derelict satellite. Another began repeating the same phrase over and over. I remember rain. It's working, Jake Mullins said from engineering, his voice thick with awe. The lullaby field is spreading. They can't filter it all. Daniel didn't smile. Not yet. They'll adapt. We have one shot. He turned to the crew. Launch all drones. Broadcast Echo's full song on every channel. And tell every civilian ship within range. Form up behind us. We're making a wall of noise. What followed wasn't a battle in the old sense. There were no grand explosions, no heroic last stands with blazing guns. Instead, humanity fought with chaos. Cargo haulers blared jazz music. Mining rigs pulsed with heartbeat rhythms. Even old weather balloons, long forgotten, floated up from the atmosphere, playing recordings of wind and birdsong. The Cathari tried to respond. They sent out signals of calm, logic, order, but human noise drowned them out. A fisherman in Norway broadcast his morning catch log. A school in Tokyo played a recording of students laughing during recess. A poet in Nairobi recited verses about hope under broken streetlights. And in the center of it all, the Aegis pushed forward, its hull vibrating with Echo's song, a melody woven from every human voice that had ever dared to say, I am here. Daniel and Jake piloted a small strike craft toward the largest Cathari command node, hidden inside a fake Earth defense satellite. Maria was gone, but her work lived on. The resonance pulse device, now upgraded with fragments of her neural pattern, sat in the craft's belly, ready to bloom. As they approached, the satellite opened like a flower made of shadow. Inside, the air shimmered with stolen memories. Faces of the lost, voices of the forgotten, dreams never lived. They're showing us what they took, Jake whispered. Then let's give it back, Daniel said. He activated the pulse. Light erupted. Not bright, but deep, like the first thought in a newborn's mind. The lullaby poured out, not as sound but as feeling. And the Cathari, for the first time in millennia, felt something they could not control. Confusion, grief, longing. The command node shuddered. Its smooth surfaces cracked, revealing not machinery but something softer. Flesh woven with light, eyes blinking open in wonder. The copies in orbit froze. Some wept black tears. Others simply whispered names they didn't know they remembered. Then, as one, the Cathari fleet turned away. Not in retreat from themselves. They drifted into the dark, broken, searching, not for conquest but for meaning. On Earth, silence fell, but not the cold silence of fear. This was the quiet after a storm. When the world catches its breath, people stepped outside, looked up, held each other. Daniel returned to the Aegis alone. Jake met him at the airlock, eyes red but steady. We did it, he said. We reminded them, Daniel corrected. That's all we ever had to do. In the days that followed, rescue ships fanned out across the system. Survivors were found on abandoned stations and hidden bunkers, even inside Cathari pods, alive, unharmed, their memories intact. The copies that remained didn't attack. They asked questions. What is joy? One asked a nurse on Mars. Can you teach me how to cry? Earth's leaders, real ones this time, called for unity, not through force but through story. Every person was asked to share something only they could. A recipe, a memory, a song. The data was beamed into deep space, not as a warning but as an invitation. On the Aegis, Daniel stood on the observation deck watching Saturn's rings catch the sunlight. Echo's voice came softly through the speakers, gentler now. You didn't win the war. You reminded them what it means to lose. Daniel nodded, and what it means to hope. Far below, a child on Earth pointed to the sky and asked her mother, Are the stars listening? And somewhere in the void, a broken Cathari ship played a lullaby back. Not to erase, but to remember.